how do you think about competition? For everyone that's building something, how much should we be focusing on our competition?
I strongly recommend not focusing on competition and instead focusing on building a product that no one else has. And you say, well, how can you do that without knowing the competition? Well, if you study the competition, you're wasting your time. Try to solve the problem in a new way and do it in a way where the customers are delighted. Running Google, we seldom looked at what our competitors were doing. What we did, we spent an awful lot of time was what is possible for us to do? What can we actually do from our current situation? And sort of the running ahead of everybody turns out to be really important.
What about deadlines?
Well, Larry established the principle of OKRs, which were objectives and key results. And every quarter, Larry would actually write down all the metrics, and he was tough. And he would say that if you got to 70% of my numbers, that was good. And then we would grade based on, are you above the 70% or are you below the 70%? And it was harsh, and it worked. You have to measure to get things done in a big corporation. Otherwise, everyone kind of looks good, makes all sorts of claims, feels good about themselves, but it doesn't have an impact.
What about business plans? Should we be writing business plans as founders?
Google wrote a business plan. It was run by a fellow named Salar, and I saw it years later, and it was actually correct. And I told Salar that this is probably the only business plan ever written for a corporation that was actually correct in hindsight. So what I prefer to do, and this is how I teach it at Stanford, is try to figure out what the world looks like in 5 years, and then try to figure out what you're going to do in 1 year, and then do it, right? So if you can basically say, this is the direction, these are the things we're going to achieve within 1 year, and then run against that as hard goals, not simple goals, but hard goals, then you'll get there. And the general rule, at least in a consumer business, is if you can get an audience of 10 or 100 million people, you can make lots of money, right? So if you give me any business that has no revenue and 100 million people, I can find a way to monetize that with advertising and sponsorships and donations and so forth and so on. Focus on getting the user right, and everything else will follow. The Google phrase is focus on the user and everything else is handled.